Welcome to today's edition of the Talk of the Tour podcast. Our guest today is Chris Como, a longtime swim coach to many of the top players on the tour. And this is a special episode for me as well. Chris and I grew up together, the same public golf course, a driving range with artificial mats and striped range balls. And now Chris has had a long, successful career teaching players like Tiger Woods, Bryson DeChambeau, and two players in this Olympics, Xander Schauffele, a two-time major winner this year, and also Jason Day, who he helped crack a long winner's drought at last year's CJ Cup. Byron Nelson. Chris also teaches PGA Tour rookie Pierceson Coody, Arnold Palmer Invitational winner Kurt Kitayama, and Siwoo Kim as well. And so two of your students are in Paris, like we said, Jason Day and Xander Schauffele. Have you heard anything from them about what is going to be demanded by Le Golf National this week to be successful? And when you're coaching from afar, what does that look like for you during the week?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard the course is great out there. They've sent some swings over. I think they're very busy with all the stuff, right? It's definitely a different situation than a typical tournament where you're kind of on your own. You're more in a team environment that's part of a bigger team that's your country. So, it's a totally different situation than like a normal, say, tour event or whatever. Typically from afar, guys are sending swings. Maybe we're doing FaceTimes. I'm in pretty consistent communication with the guys that coach, even if I'm not at that particular tournament. But yeah, everybody's super excited about this week. It's just such a unique experience for everybody. They're obviously hoping to, each of them respectively are hoping to bring home gold for their country. I don't know who I'm rooting for more. It's always hard, right? Because I don't ever really root for one client over another one. But Xander is representing the U.S., and Jason's representing Australia. But I don't know. I'm rooting for both of them. They're both awesome people. And again, it's a unique experience for each of them. So it's pretty cool to watch.
Xander's won two majors this year, of course, and is the defending Olympic champion. You've been working with him since the end of last year. Have you seen the gold medal this year?
I haven't seen it. No, okay. I have not seen it yet.
In working with him, run up to this week, have you seen anything that's shown what it means to him to be the gold medalist and to have been an Olympic champion?
Yeah, I mean, I think so much of it, especially that with his dad being such a top level athlete and the relationship they have, I think winning that gold was really, really special to him. In general, I think in golf right now, the majors are kind of in this elevated status, and it's kind of discussed a little bit. What's maybe that notch below? Is it the players? Is it an Olympic medal? Is it what is it exactly? If someone's competing in a tournament, they want to win it, right? In that moment. So they're giving it their all regardless. I think, with the Olympics, as time goes on and we sort of grow this list of really top caliber champions, like Rose won it before that, right? Mm-hmm. And then Xander, and both are major winners, and it's obviously a somewhat self-selecting field. It's like look who's representing U.S. These are all top guys who've all won majors, right? But I think as that list of Olympic champions grows and the history gets a little bit deeper for golf specifically, I think it'll keep elevating what it means to be an Olympian medal winner for golf. And I think at some point we'll see it be at that level where it's held in the same esteem as a major.
Yep. And at the time when he won it, it was the biggest title of his career. Now, of course, he's added two major championships in 2024. What's it been like to see this up close and to watch a guy really achieve a dream he's been chasing for so long, not just once, but twice this year?
It's crazy, right? It's so weird. Life is crazy. It's like things never happen as fast as you expect them to, and they also seem to happen faster than you expect them to at the same time, right? Like it's never exactly on the timeline you sort of expect. And for him, I'm sure he's been feeling like he's super close to winning a major for a long time, and he at the Players he was very close to winning that. Didn't quite win that week. Scotty had an unbelievable Sunday, and it can become so easy of like, okay, what do you got to do different? How do you get over that hump or whatever it is? And for the way he was playing, it's sort of like nothing. Just double down on what you're doing, right? Just keep doing what you're doing. Like from a statistical perspective, these things, don't happen in these sort of even distributions. They oftentimes happen fairly lumpy. And then, next thing you know, he wins the PGA. And then there is a little bit of that, like having done that and just kind of, air quotes, getting the monkey off your back, whatever it is, whatever exactly that means, who knows really. But like, there's a little bit of like, you've been there before, you have that to draw upon. And then, played just spectacular on Sunday at the Open, which was really special. I feel very blessed to be able to go along on this ride with him and his team, which he's had this incredible team for a long time. His dad, Stefan, has coached him and still is such a huge part of it, but has, done a great job in developing him. And then it's like, he's got his caddy, Austin Kaiser, who their relationship's great. He's one of the best caddies in the world. You got Derek Ueda, who's been his putting coach forever. During the Open, I kept texting Derek. I was like, I love you. He made, he made a bunch of key putts. I'm like, I love you. Like, I can't, just like total man crush, because Xander's one of the most consistent, best putters out there. He's gotten some great, incredible speed with his trainer, David Sundberg. Working out, like just really getting his body in top shape in the gym. And then Marius, who's, one of the best physical therapists in the world, helps him, with all the rehab and all the just keeping his body in a great spot. Yeah, his clients won 3 out of the 4 majors this year.
He got a lot of TV time at the Players Championship, I think, by helping get Scotty Scheffele.
That's right.
After his neck injury, yeah.
When Scotty won the Masters and then Xander won the PGA, I kept saying we were on the Marnus Grand Slam watch for his clients, but then Bryson won the U.S. Open. I don't think he works with Marnus. So.
You got to feel good to play good.
Yeah.
For Xander, especially, winning that first major at the PGA, it came just a week after what could have been a really disheartening loss at the Wells Fargo. He was leading Rory for much of that front 9 there. Rory goes 8 under on 8 holes to just kind of lap Xander. Just curious, how did he take that instead of being disheartened, go and bounce back to win the PGA the very next week? And what does it say about him?
Yeah, just so much resiliency, right? I mean, he clearly wasn't disheartened. Like, he knew he was playing good, and it's like it wasn't just that. You also had the players, right? So like within a short span of time, there was 2 tournaments that were right there, and it didn't quite go his way. But like, it didn't change anything with his process, didn't change anything with his work ethic, his belief. He just went out the next week and just kept doing what he does, and just a little bit of that knowingness that, hey, look, if I do this from a sort of a statistical perspective, like, they're going to eventually fall my way. It's hard to know exactly which week that is, but I'm just going to focus on the things that I can take care of. He went out and did that at Valhalla, and obviously things did fall his way, and he won his first major. So,
and then, like you mentioned, he closed out Royal Troon in the Open in such a just clutch back 9, a really strong back 9 there on a tough stretch of holes at Royal Troon, and took command of that tournament. The player now that you see compared to the guy maybe you saw when you first started working with him at the end of 2023, how do they compare and contrast? What's changed over the last few months?
He's the same guy. I mean, he's been a great golfer ever. I mean, he's going into it with the same work ethic, the same attitude. I mean, sure, once you win a couple majors, there's probably just that added level of like, okay, I have done this. But I think deep down inside, he knew eventually he was going to win a major. He had the belief that he could. He's playing great. I mean, he's definitely playing amazing golf right now. I think, in general, his swing day to day is in a place where he just feels very comfortable. But, golf has its own ebb and flows when it comes to like your swing and how you feel and all that. That's just sort of the nature of a career of a golfer. But like who he is, I mean, I think he's been this person for a long, long time. And that's a testimony to, the way his family has raised him and the team he's put around himself, and just his overall perspective and the overall attitude he goes into his profession. So he's the same dude.
So you guys started working together at the end of 2023. How did that come about?
Oh, I mean, we've known each other for a long time. We have a mutual friend named Carter Poole, who, a long time ago I used to work with quite a bit. And, we've always been super friendly, known his dad for a while, again, super friendly with his dad. And, I think his dad just is kind of transitioning to a different phase where he's just he's in Hawaii and just enjoying life. He just reached out to me just to be like, hey, look, let's chat golf swing. Like to get some of your thoughts or whatever. And then it just kind of slowly evolved into sort of a deeper and a more formal relationship from there.
So when a guy like that, one of the top players in the world, calls you and asks for help, how do you kind of start that process of determining the plan you want to take them on, the road you want to take them on? And yeah, how do you just kick that off, especially with a guy who is already one of the best players in the world?
Yeah, I mean, I listen, right? I ask a lot of questions. I try to get a lot of information. I try to really understand their history of their game, their swing, early on, with him, I asked him, I was like, get me as many swings of yourself from as far back as you can. I've had conversations with his dad, just try to take it all in, right? Because he was already clearly very good. And it's like, yes, you want to get better, but how do you get better in a way that hopefully you don't get worse? Because you can get worse. Like, that's a very real thing when you try to do any sort of swing change or whatever it is. And so for me, it's a very sort of front end due diligence, super patient with like how I go about it. Collecting as much data as you can that's like, easily available at that time. And then, and data is not just like, force plates or three plates, 3D or whatever. It's also like the shot you hit, what's the shots you hate hitting, what are some of the misses that, you actually don't mind missing, whatever it is, or you don't mind hitting, things like that. And, from all that, kind of the game, at least the front end of the game plan sort of emerged. And then it becomes, okay, how do you, start with something that hopefully kills as many birds with one stone or makes as much of an impact in the way that you want to, obviously, with us doing as little as possible. And then you're constantly updating, you're constantly getting more and more information as you go along. So, he's talking about how we've had a fairly slow drip approach. There's differences in the swing. Like, it's definitely some, pretty significant changes, but we haven't tried to like just do it all at one time. And along the way, we've tried to really kind of like take in information to see if we need to call an audible or whatever it is. So, you asked about the front end. For me, it's just a lot of information gathering, really trying to understand the person, try to understand how they process information. So everything from the technique side of it to a little bit of like their own sort of like, how they interpret things and just trying to get inside their head as best as possible.
So what's the oldest Xander swing you looked at?
Gosh, it probably was, sometime in college. Okay. I don't think he sent me anything from junior days. I love seeing people's swings from when they were junior. So, and look, at the end of the day, like I'm hoping that, over time I can keep learning it more and more about his swing and him as an individual, and then be helpful as a coach through that deeper understanding of that person.
And how would you describe the changes you guys have
made? It's a little bit more across the line. The way he works his shoulders and his pelvis is a little bit different going back. And then from there, the club transitions slightly different, which allows him to work his body a little bit different through the shot. Nothing totally dramatic, but there's definitely, if you know what you're looking for, there's definitely differences. And, I think in general, it's allowing him to hit a fade that doesn't feel like a pull hook is as much in play. He likes to work the ball a lot. So for him, it's like he wants to have everything feel that he can draw it and then fade it and then do both without hitting a left shot. Is sort of, I would say, the miss that, whether it's unconscious or conscious, that most golfers don't really like. So,
and one of the byproducts, you mentioned it, he's gained speed this year, I think about 3 to 4 miles an hour, which he's talked about being important to competing. So many guys are hitting it so long these days, and just having an extra 10, 15 yards in the tank is huge. The distance gains, are they from the swing changes? Are they the work with the trainer, a combination of both? What has been the factors that have allowed him to gain that speed this year?
Yeah, I think it's everything, right? He's done an awesome job again with David Sundberg. And then, Martis, like as his physio, just you start swinging it faster and doing more in the gym. Your body's going to need a little bit more love away from the golf and the gym. And that's where Martis jumps in. So I think that's been a huge part of it. His body's been awesome. And then, some of the swing changes have been helpful too. I think for, what we're going for with the body going through it, and then how the backswing and the transition sets that up, it just, makes him feel like he can be a little bit more aggressive with certain swings. And I think that freedom in general is going to ramp up the speed.
You oversaw Bryson's speed gains in 2020 that led to him winning the U.S. Open. This wasn't quite as dramatic, both in changes to the body and also maybe increase in distance. But are there any comparisons to those two processes, and how are they different also?
The comparison is definitely that front end kind of due diligence, if you will, being super mindful of, hey, you're trying to help someone get better, but then also, minimize the risk of them getting worse. That was a big part of the work, because with Bryson, it was like big changes, super invasive. And it's like, okay, we're sticking our neck out there. But we did a lot of measurement along the way of like 3D and all that to really kind of track it, sort of air quotes, leave breadcrumbs in the forest. So if we kind of got in a weird spot, we could back our way out of it. There's definitely some similarities in terms of the way they work their lower body. That's probably somewhat conducive to like speed. You know, in general, both their backswings got a little bit longer, which is also conducive to speed. So yeah, there was definitely, I don't want to say similarities, but there's some kind of things that are usually will help a person get to more speed. And then Bryson really went pretty deep down the path of like doing very intentional speed training. Like, it was very public that he would do stuff like just trying to hit it as hard as you can. Pretty high volume sessions with that just being his focus. And then, for me, it was when he was doing that, overseeing, hey, in an effort to do this, are things getting weird from a swing perspective? Because if that's the case, then it's just sort of, like kind of like dirty speed, right? It's not going to actually translate to like your in competition swing. And we got to figure out how to bridge the gap between those two types of swings. So, Bryson, there was this like really big time intention of trying to see how fast he could go. So it was maybe a little bit different in that regard.
Clubhead speed, like Xander talked about, is more important than ever. It's just so important to have that speed to compete nowadays. How much of that's due to equipment, maybe allowing guys to swing a little harder at it? And how much of it do you think is based on just our better understanding of the golf swing, optimal launch conditions, things like that?
I guess you could say there's the ball speed, which would just be like the, somewhat of the efficiency of the club head speed, and then your impact to the ball. Then there's the the optimization of the ball flight, which is a big part of it. Again, the spin rate's right, again the launch angle's right, all that's a big part of it. And there's right from an optimum perspective, and then there's also getting it good enough for certain things that a person needs to feel like they have the right control over it. Whatever. For example, you could say that whatever amount of degrees up with a driver is going to help launch the ball at the right angle with like the right spin rate to maximize for any of a given ball speed how far the ball goes. But some guys don't drive it very well hitting up on it, and they drive it much better hitting down on it. So now if you're, whatever, a person's hitting down on it 3 degrees, and this is where they feel like they have the most control, or where they want to live for whatever reasons, then how do you fit in a way and have technology in a way to where it optimizes that angle of attack to get as good of a ball flight as possible given that angle of attack? So the technology is a huge part of it. And like you'd mentioned, because the clubhead speed is just a clubhead speed, but having a more forgiving clubhead might make someone feel like they can swing harder. So yes, I do think having more forgiveness allows someone to go a little harder and still have a ball flight that feels like it's within the the sort of the dispersion that they need to be to compete on the courses they're competing on. And then there's just the straight up give someone a stick. How fast can you swing it? And I think that's gone up tremendously too, right? If you were to give someone like a stack, right, a training aid, and had your average PGA Tour guy swing that, 50 years ago, and then have a guy swing it now, like the average guy's swinging a lot faster now. So they're just swinging faster. Now, again, is that because the clubs are more forgiving and they just have that? I don't know. That's a hard thing to sort of measure. But no matter how you slice it, people are just swinging a stick way faster right now than they ever have. And it's a combination, I'm going to guess, of in the gym, of actually being intentional to try to swing it faster, and having clubs that allow them to be more forgiving. So they feel like they can swing it faster and still somewhat control it. And on top of that, all the ball flight stuff being more optimized so that for any given club head speed that they are creating, they're creating one more ball speed and a ball that's flying in a way that is going to travel farther at any given ball speed.
With all the technology at a teacher's hands, from launch monitors to 3D motion capture, are there any secrets of the golf swing that we've unlocked over the years you feel like that maybe we didn't know about 20, 30 years ago?
Yeah, totally. But I can't tell you because we're going to keep them secret. No,
okay.
Is there a secret? No, I mean, like, I think, look, at the end of the day, like a guy like Trevino or Nicholas, they figured it out. Maybe not at a conscious level, but they may not know what they figured out, but like they hit it as good as anybody has ever hit it, right? There's like a handful of people and they're in that category. So a lot of the stuff really is for someone who doesn't hit it that good. I think we have a better understanding of maybe what goes into that. So if someone doesn't, we can help recreate it. But in a lot of ways, like, I've always said, like, I'm more into the science of discovery than the science of invention. So to me, it's not like we're creating the way you should swing a golf club. It's like, I think, with some of these technologies and our better understanding of the body and certain principles of human motion, we can have a better lens to look at what guys have already figured out, understand that at a deeper level. And then if someone is not there, help them sort of get closer to there. So I think that's where the deeper understanding and the air quote secrets are. And it has nothing to do with like something different than what's already was done. It's just a deeper understanding of what has already been done. And then, better strategies to help people who aren't there to possibly incorporate whatever those things are into their own game.
So Nicklaus and Trevino figured it out, and now it's maybe easier to help other players figure out what Nicklaus and Trevino knew innately.
Essentially. And again, when I say know and figure it out, I don't think they maybe necessarily knew it, right? Like it wasn't like they just did it. But the point is like, if you were to take their 3D and their force plates and all their stuff, they'd be like, holy cow, that's amazing, right? So now they may have just been like, I don't know what they're thinking, right? So I'm not saying I do like yes or no, but it's like, they may have just been like, I got a club and I'm just whacking it. And the ball did awesome stuff. So it's not like they knew it in a way that they can necessarily pass it along to another person, which is actually in some ways probably better for the athlete, right? But if someone comes along and they hit it super far and they flush it and they have no idea what they're doing, freaking awesome. Just keep doing that, right? I think all this stuff is like, if someone is at a place where like, I want to get better for X, Y, and Z, whatever it is, then I think our understanding of how a person can get closer to these elite levels of ball striking, club head speed, or whatever, I think we have a better overall understanding and strategies to help someone get there.
Are there commonalities between great players today that are different than maybe the commonalities between great players 25, 30 years ago?
I think it's sort of similar to what we were talking about. Not really. I think in essence, the swings, they're maybe a little different because of some equipment stuff. And also like the course setup, like you probably need to hit the ball a little higher now. So maybe some swing stuff has changed subtly just to get the ball flights a little higher. But in general, I mean, if I look at an old school swing like a Snead or a Hogan or Nicklaus or Trevino or whatever, it's like, that's really good. And I think if those swings showed up in today's era, they'd perform really well. And then, vice versa, I think if you were to take, a Tiger or name whoever's Scotty, some great ball striker, Xander, and you were to put them back in time, I think those swings would perform really well back in time also. So I think in their fundamental sense, like good swings are good swings, and they're somewhat, would be good swings regardless of the time. Again, I just think our understanding is a little bit deeper of what makes swings work. And then through that, you have maybe a better chance of helping someone build something that's, really high level. Sometimes you see little trends in instruction that can kind of influence things, but I think those are small sort of things that don't really matter that much. I don't think in any sort of real fundamental way swings are like that different now than they were X amount of years ago.
Okay.
The best swings.
You've worked with so many great players and spent so much time out on tour now. What are things you've learned over the years about how top players operate and maybe what separates them from their competition?
The best players that, are the best for a long time typically have really strong work ethic, a really strong work ethic. They're mentally able to let go of shots. They just have an overall kind of attitude about it that seems to really help them through the ups and downs of the game. Having said that, there's been some really top players that, get caught up in the emotion of the game too. It's a tough game, right? It's a highly volatile game. So I don't know if that's a commonality. And having said that, I've also seen guys who, maybe haven't made it, who have had strong work ethics and have had good attitudes and then lose their tour card. So I don't know. I mean, I do think in general, if you have a really strong work ethic and you have a great attitude, that gives you a better chance of sustaining through these sort of inherent ups and downs of the game. But I don't know if that in and of itself is like some sort of defining factor of why a guy makes it or not makes it, because I've seen people have great attitudes, great mental games, great work ethic, etc. And, it's tough and they just, not keep their card or whatever.
For all that we know about the golf swing, it seems like even with being able to measure things that we couldn't measure before, there's still a ton of mystery to the game. It seems like, are there mysteries you feel like we're still uncovering or things that you're still curious about trying to discover?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's part of the fun of it. I mean, I think that's part of the fun of golf in general. I mean, if I were to like come up with like this theoretical best biomechanics lab that you could imagine, you got the best Doppler radar, 3D motion, force plates, yada, yada, yada. It's like you're still only measuring a really small percentage of all the variables that are very relevant that go into like playing really top golf. And there's still, a lot of things, even from this the technique side of it, that's like, I don't know if we know that for sure, which is really part of the fun. And it's also part of where there's edges to be found, which is part of the fun from a competitive environment. So, I think for me as a coach, it's sort of this never ending process of how do you keep, trying to get a deeper understanding of what goes into the game. And then, also how do you get a deeper understanding of how to help an individual get from point A to point B. And, I think all those things combined is where, as a coach, you can hopefully be, of value to a person you're working with.
What is it like as a coach when you're at Valhalla and Xander makes that final putt and he's a major champion? I guess take us there, take us to maybe to the aftermath, the celebration, just, and what it's like for you is just helping a guy get, like you said, from point A to point B to a big point B.
Yeah, it was so great. He had those close calls going into it with the players and Wells Fargo, and just a great year going up into it, and not having won. And again, he's got such a great attitude that it's one of those things that it's like it's kind of hard to tell if it's like, is it wearing on a person, is it not wearing on a person? But again, no matter how you slice it, it's like he wants to win, and he wants to win a major. And he's got such a great team around him, like his wife Maya, again Austin, his dad, his friend Carter was out there. Dad wasn't out there, but just had actually talked to him the Saturday before. And it's one of those things from just a very human level was like really cool to kind of be a part of that team. You couldn't script it with more drama, with Bryson breathing down his neck. Who Bryson was like awesome the way he handled that. Kind of met up with him when he finished the round. And that putt, like just 18 the way, even just the hole, right? It's like you hit a drive that was not a bad drive, but just kind of bounces in the bunker. And it's like, you can interpret that either way, right? That could very easily be oh, here we go again type of thing. Or it can be like, okay, here's like the challenge to step up and meet this challenge. It's a great shot with an awkward lie up in front of the green, has a very tricky pitch. It's a very solid pitch. And then it has one of those putts where you're gonna miss that, a significant percentage of the time. And then again, then it becomes like, the whole narrative of like, here you go, whatever, right? Like just it's the media's job to create stories, but it tees up for another great story for the media to potentially run with. And he made it. And it was such I think a release of emotion for him, every around him, and even for myself as a coach. So it was really special.
And then last year you helped Jason Day get back in the winner's circle. Describe your work with Jason and kind of what you guys went through to help him win again.
Yeah, he just he's been really trying to get his body in a place where he feels like he can play for a long time. He loves the game, just get everything situated to where he just feels good from a body perspective. And, I think he did a really good job of really understanding his body, how to work in the gym, like some swing changes, all that to really day to day feel a lot better with his body. And, had a really nice week out in Dallas and won that week. So it was awesome. And I think Jason's, a guy who absolutely loves the game, and he's got so much competitive fire in him that I think that we're nowhere near seeing what he can really do again. I think he's got another great run ahead of him.
That's saying something when you also have 4 kids.
I know, but he's really good at being an amazing father and family man, and then still putting in the work. He works incredibly hard as well. So I think with his wife, they've just created a structure to where he's able to do both really well, which is commendable.
And Pierceson Coody's a tour rookie. You've known him since he was a kid. Number 1 amateur in the world, number 1 in PGA Tour University, has won several times on the Korn Ferry Tour rather quickly. And then a maybe difficult start to the year, but then just lost in a playoff recently at the ISCO. And what's Pierceson like? Maybe introduce people to Pierceson who don't maybe don't know much about him yet?
Yeah, he's great. I mean, I've known Pearson and worked with him since he was like 10 or something. I mean, you work with someone for that long, it's just a different type of relationship. And he's unbelievably talented, works so hard. He had kind of a weird injury in college that I think
Describe that injury for people who don't know.
Yeah, he
ran into a wall racing his brother.
Yeah, and they crazy enough, they're twins, and they both had like essentially the same fractures. Super weird, right? But like that's a tough thing to get past. But he's done a great job of it, and got his card, and yeah, like you said, had a little bit of a rocky start, but really starting to kind of like get into a better rhythm of stuff. So, I mean, he's going to have a hell of a PGA Tour career, and that's again just a different type of relationship when you've known someone for that long, and it's been a lot of fun for me to watch him and his brother. I don't work with his brother anymore, but Parker still, like I've worked with him from when he was 10 to whatever 20 20 or something, and both of them, I'm just big fans in general of them because I've known them for so long, and then to hopefully help Pierceson reach his potential, which is really high, has always been a really fun thing for me to be a part of.
And so going forward from here, Xander has achieved so many goals this year. Does your role as a coach change at all? Do things look any differently now that you're maybe trying to stay on top of the mountain instead of climb the mountain? Or is it just kind of the same process that got to this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think things are always have their own sort of like slight evolution to it. You're always, wanting to be malleable to where, however it needs to look is how it needs to look at for any given window. I think the goal is always how do you, get better in a way that minimizes the risk of getting worse. And then, trying to do things in a way that are as, least invasive as possible, because that's oftentimes where the risk sort of comes along with it, when you start to do things that are really invasive. So I think at a high level, the overall sort of like goal is the same, and then the specifics of that are constantly, moving and evolving. So it's not like there's some like crazy swing change or like, oh, we got to do this type of thing. So yeah, it's always this subtle sort of how do you turn different knobs to try to get that much more out of your game? How do you understand what your particular sweet spot is a little bit better, and then try to keep you in that, more often than not, things like that.
Well, perfect. I think on that note, we will wrap it. Really appreciate your time and insight into a player who's had one of the best years on tour, arguably the best, some would say, and achieved so many dreams this year, and your other students as well. So, Chris, thanks for joining us, and have a great week.
Thanks, Sean.